Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It says in the program that we are going to have another sung prelude, but our music director's voice is not cooperating this morning, and so we will save that singing for another day, and we get to listen to her play our prelude instead. Jen? Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everyone to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or watching from wherever you may be, know that you are welcome here. I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, this congregation's lead minister.
And I'm Susan, your worship associate this morning. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who are willing to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice.
It is great to be with all of you again this morning. Let's sing now to wake up the spirit of being together on this first Sunday morning, gray Sunday morning of February. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together, "My Life Flows On" in endless song, which is number 108 in your gray hymnal. The lyrics will also be on the screen above. And yes, we are a congregation where moving around and dancing is welcome. We light our chalice flame this morning to words by Scott Taylor and John Scar. May this flame cast its light toward better days, reminding us that the future is not simply a place we are going, but a place we're creating. The path of new possibilities will not be found, but made. The justice we long for does not sit at the end of that inevitable arc. It lies in the bending that is ours to do. A new world is waiting to be built, my friends. May our time together help light the way. Our chalice is lit. Come, let us worship together. With this song. And now, Jody, you have a story for us all? Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jody McIntosh. I'm your Director of Religious Exploration. And this morning I have a story written by a real queen. It is written by Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah. She's the Queen of Jordan. It is called The Sandwich Swap. It all began with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it ended with a hummus sandwich. Selma and Lily were best of friends at school. They drew pictures together. They played on the swings together. They jumped rope together. And they ate their lunches together. But just what they ate was a little different. Lily ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch. And Selma ate a hummus and pita sandwich every day for lunch. And although Lily never said it out loud, she thought Selma's sandwich looked weird and yucky. She felt terrible that her friend had to eat that icky chickpea paste every day. Ugh, yuck. And although Selma never said it out loud, she thought Lily's sandwich looked strange and gross. She felt just awful. Her friend had to eat that gooey peanut paste every day. Ew, gross. Then one day, Lily just couldn't hold back those pesky thoughts any longer. "Your sandwich looks kind of yucky," she blurted out. "What did you say?" Selma asked, thinking she must have misunderstood her friend. "I said, your sandwich looks yucky." Selma frowned. She looked down at the thin, soft bread, and she thought of her beautiful, smiling mother as she carefully cut Selma's sandwich into 2 neat halves that morning. Her hurt feelings turned mad. "Yeah, well, your sandwich looks gross, and it smells bad too," Selma snapped back. Lily looked surprised. She sniffed the thick, squishy bread, and she thought of her dad in his silly apron whistling as he cut Lily's sandwich into 2 perfect triangles that morning. Lily scowled. "It does not smell bad. 'Tis too. Ooh, yuck. Ooh, gross." That afternoon, the friends did not draw pictures together, they did not swing together, and they did not jump rope together. The next day, Selma ate her lunch at one table and Lily ate her lunch at the other. Meanwhile, the peanut butter versus hummus story had spread and everyone began to choose sides. Each side had something not so nice to say about the other. Pretty soon, the rude insults had nothing at all to do with the peanut butter or hummus. "You're weird. You're stupid. You look funny. You dress dumb." And then it happened. Somebody yelled, "Food fight!" Peanut butter and hummus sandwich and other lunch favorites began flying back and forth between both sides of the lunchroom. They stuck to the walls. They stuck to the ceiling. They stuck to the lunch lady. When the sandwiches were all gone, pudding cups and applesauce and carrot sticks took flight. Selma and Lily looked at one another from across the rowdy, splattered room. They both felt ashamed by what they saw. They both felt really ashamed when the principal called them into her office after they had helped clean up the mess. The following day, Selma set her lunch down across from Lily's. The 2 girls nibbled on their sandwich in silence. Finally, Lily got up the courage to speak. "Would you like to try a bite of my peanut butter and jelly?" Selma grinned. "Sure, why not? Would you like to try my hummus and pita?" Lily laughed. "I'd like that." "On the count of 3. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yummy. Hey, this is delicious. This is heavenly." The girls giggled and hugged and traded sandwiches. After lunch, Selma and Lily met with the principal again. This time, they were there to suggest a very special event for the whole school. And that's how it began, with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and ended with a hummus and pita sandwich. The end. So we will sing the children out, and as our tradition goes, my folks on this aisle can put your hands out to create an arch for the children to go down. And the children can follow me.
And now we turn to how we are together. As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please get in touch through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are here in Worship Hall this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it is available from Carol at the welcome table at the back of the pews. And she's very busy doing something there, so she's not waving at the moment. And now here is Mariella from our board to highlight some announcements for today.
Good morning. This morning we have a special message from our FirstU Caring Network. During the month of February, which is also known as Heart Month, the Caring Network wants to thank everyone for continuing to care for each other. We are all interconnected, interdependent, and minister to each other in various ways. If you would like to find out more, please stop by the Caring Network table at the back of Worship Hall, back there to the right of the doors. The Environmental Action Group needs your help in the fight against climate change. The government has proposed a new emissions framework and is asking for your comment. Please help us tell them it must be more stringent. Go to the Climate Action page on the FirstU website, and under Enviro Advocacy, you'll find information on how to participate. The deadline for comments is tomorrow, February 5th, so if you haven't done this already, please do it today. 2 important events to highlight. Next Sunday, February 11th, at 1 p.m., here in Worship Hall, there will be an adult learning workshop and sing-along on the history of protest music. Register in advance for a light lunch beforehand by going to firstunitarianottawa.ca/register, or find the link in the EUU or on our website. And today, after fellowship hour at 12:30, we hope you'll join us for our in-person Ideas Garage brainstorming session about our new social justice priority, cultivating compassionate community. You can learn more about each of these events and other FirstU activities in the EUU, and you may, in case you haven't noticed it, on the back of the orders of service you have, we now are starting to have all the activities coming up for the upcoming week. So you can take this home and put on your refrigerator, and that'll be a great reminder to, in addition to the EUU and other places, but this is a really easy, quick, handy thing. And then if you want more information, you can go to our website or EUU for more details. And now I'd like to call up Eva to make share a message from our Adult Learning and Growth group.
Good morning. We're very excited about the Adult Learning and Growth program that we have on offer this winter, spring. There's some really interesting programs and workshops coming up. They include things like a workshop called What Moves Us, which is being led by Reverend Eric and Reverend Ann Orfield, that looks at different UU theologians as a way of deepening our understanding of UUism and helping us on our own spiritual paths. And there's so much more. Mariella mentioned the Protest of Music workshop next week. There's courses on the Enneagram, which is a wonderful way of getting to deepen our knowledge of ourselves. There's accessing your inner knowledge, a workshop on gender and pronouns, and a drumming workshop in April. Plus, Tai Chi is going to be starting at FirstU beginning in mid-March. So there is a listing of our programs at the back. Carol's holding up the book that you can use to register. You can also register online by going to the website. Allison did a wonderful and miraculous job on Friday at setting up our new information with pages where you can register. So please register. Look at the programs. I'm sure there's something that appeals to everyone. Register, and I really encourage you to register early. We Unitarians have a real habit of leaving it to the last moment, which makes it difficult for facilitators to know what they're dealing with. And one last thing, if learning and growth is your passion, then please do talk to me about joining the Adult Learning and Growth team. Oh, and I should have said copies of the listing are available at the back. If you picked one up last week, there have been some changes to dates and a few other things, so you don't necessarily need to pick up another one today, but do check the EUU and the website for the most current information.
And just so you can't say you didn't know about it, our office Jen, our office manager, has created a new bulletin board with really big colorful strips for each of the upcoming really cool events, including Trivia Night on February 12th, next Monday a week. We encourage each of you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever. This morning, each of us is welcome. we of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all part of this spiritual community. Welcome.
Thank you, Mariella. Before we begin our traditional time of joys and sorrows, 2 points. The first is that following the story that Jody shared, food fights, not so much here, please. Dancing, yes, but food fights, we don't need that. Pita and peanut butter are both welcome here. And as you saw, Rule Amdur came forward and presented us with a doorstop. This is to remind me, to remind all of us, that if you see a doorstop on an external door, please just kick it out of the way. They are fire doors and should not be held open. That said, each week we pause in our time together in recognition of both the joys, sorrows, and challenges in our own lives and across the globe. We honor these celebrations and sorrows by placing stones in bowls of water. As the ripples extend outward, we can imagine them continuing out beyond the bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. Susan, would you help me drop a stone or two? A stone of joy that, thanks to our facilities manager, Dee, and Dee's father, our space is now more accessible than it ever has been before. This is a long time coming. Susan, put a couple of stones in there. That's a big one. And a stone of sorrow as well this morning. Our dear Beryl has been in the hospital since the middle of last month, and she's not doing well. Please keep her and her family in your thoughts. And now is the time for anyone who would care to come forward and place your own stone or stones into the bowls before us. your imperfect minister forgot a stone, so I placed it at the end in sympathy for dear Mo and her family as they mourn and remember her younger sister, Josie. And the final stone I placed in the water is in honor of all that still remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts. To guide us now into a time of stillness and reflection, a bit of a change this morning. I have a reading from a friend and mentor of mine, Marco Bellatini. It will lead us into a time of stillness and reflection. Let the difficulties of the week take their Sabbath now, their brief and simple rest. Let the worries of the week lay their heft gently onto the dark earth below us, which can bear them with greater ease than any of us can by ourselves. Let the tangle of feelings, the pull and push of these last days sit still for a minute, stop writhing in our hearts, and move no more than a Buddha at rest under a tree. Let there be stillness in our hearts, if just for a moment, the balance point between breathing in and breathing out, like a pause of a dancer between movements in the music. Let the breathing in the room be free and flowing. Let pulses trance a slower rhythm in the wrist. Let the coming silence be like hands pulling back a curtain, revealing the table set with the feast of life, which is present here and now and has been the whole while, present to those who give up living in either the past or the future, living in this, the moment.
This morning's second reading, excuse me, by the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt is in honor of Black History Month. Once an editor of the New York Times Book Review, she is now president of Star King School for the Ministry in Oakland, California. Her book, Unafraid of the Dark, was published under her earlier professional name, Rosemary L. Bray, in 1998. As our reading begins, she is talking about her son. Alan is a fearless child. He will run anywhere, climb anything, explore whatever is out there. I am most touched, however, by his love of the dark. Even as a toddler, he loved to walk to the window and point outside, calling out, "Dark," in a tone of glee. He is still willing to go to the window at night, inspect what he sees, then turn to us and announce, "It's very dark out there." It is a dark that he refuses to interrupt with night lights or other paraphernalia. To Alan, the moon and the stars are his friends. The dark is a safe place in which to rest. I know it cannot last. I know he will eventually fall prey to the developmental moment in early childhood when it occurs to him that there are things in life to be afraid of, including the dark. But I love the idea that I have given life to a child who laughs in the face of what I once feared so desperately. No writer, no parent can resist the metaphor inherent in his faithful trust of me, of his father, his assurance that night is followed by morning. In the end, it is his pure and childlike trust that makes it impossible to believe that the world is permanently flawed, that our country and its people are disintegrating before our eyes in a morass of hatred and greed. It's not that I never think such things. It isn't even that I don't think them very often. Turning on the news, opening a new newspaper, is another opportunity to gather testimony about our failures as a people. But it is not all we are. For the sweeping xenophobia, the reinvigorated racism, the deepening scorn for women and women's work, including and especially mothering, I see and know and live amid sorry, the voice isn't working. Where am I? I see and know and live amid pockets of resistance. Alan is unafraid of the dark, and I am learning to be. I am learning to love being a Black woman in a world that often fears and resents my presence, and using that identity as a passport to my citizenship in the world. I am learning to accept those shadowed moments in which my nation cyclically rests. I am learning to continue in the face of failure, as caring women and men have done before me for generations. Like Alan, I can announce, it's very dark out there. For the sake of my precious sons and for the precious children not my own, I can stay unafraid of the dark and work my way toward morning.
All will be well. I most sincerely hope so. When I was first thinking about our topic today, the blessings of conflict, I was really at first interested in the ways and means when we don't feel ourselves challenged, we make trouble for ourselves. But this is the first Sunday in February. It is gray outside. It's relatively warm as Februaries in the Great White North go, but we're barely halfway through winter. And to talk about the ways we sabotage ourselves, well, I didn't want to be seen as that kind of a sadist. So let's talk a bit about conflict and what we might learn from it. How's that? Still, before we go on, there's another question I need to ask you. You can raise hands or not as you will. Who likes conflict? Okay, I'm not so much of a sadist, and few of you are masochists. That's a good place to begin. So we're going to go to the Jewish scriptures now, briefly. In the book of Job, in chapter 5, verse 18, Eliphaz says, in the midst of a long exposition to Job, listing all the reasons Job should let God be God and trust in his ways, he says, he, capital H, meaning God, he wounds, but his hands also heal. He wounds, but his hands heal. To which I say, ouch. Yes, I certainly admit that life often seems to work that way, but if that is an expression of divine will, that's a plan that does not sit easily with this universalist. Universalist meaning that a loving God wouldn't do such a thing. Still, we're called to make all we can of our time on this spinning globe, and we strive to make the land we inhabit as just and welcoming as we can. And part of this is realizing that differing people will have differing ways of expressing themselves and understanding their experience. Like in the story Jody told us earlier. Peanut paste, chickpea paste. There are a lot of similarities there. Very different flavors, though. Different cultures expressing what grows in their area and what they enjoy. Is one wrong? Of course not. Is one better than the other? Of course not. Do we have preferences? Of course we may. Has anyone here, another question, not learned anything from a conflict that you've been in? I don't see any hands. I may have shared this before. and I'll share it again. I was 26, maybe 27 when my father died, and their congregation was a little smaller than this one. They had the practice of joys and sorrows that people could stand up if they had a significant thing and say it. And my mother asked me to announce the following Sunday that my father had died the Wednesday before. And I was thinking about seminary, the congregation that I had been in, the people I would be speaking to were very formative in my thinking, not always in a positive way, but they were formative. And so I got up, and they all knew that my father had died. He had been president 2 terms in a row recently at that point. And I said, as I think you know, my father, Donald Mervyn Meter, died last Wednesday. Pancreatic cancer took him after a year and a half. And in addition, just to naming that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for supporting, loving, and challenging him to be the best person he could be. Because the best person he could be made him a better father to my brother and I. So I thanked the congregation for their role in that. And I meant it then, and I meant it now. You've heard me say this, I'm sure. Life can be, at least at times, a contact sport. And the same is true for living in a religious community like ours. After my father died, a wise person in the congregation that I was a member of then said, in the months that come, Eric, reach out to those who had access to your father in avenues that you didn't, and get to know the Don that they knew. And I learned something really interesting. I learned that his coworkers knew his anger. There were times when he would get righteously indignant and say, no, this is the right thing, we're doing this. If it costs us a little more, it costs us a little more. I was his eldest son. I knew his anger. When he came home from work and I had had a kind of a day, he let me know he didn't have anything more to give and he needed me to be still. We got that. My father was very active in his congregation, and I don't know if the people in the church saw my father's anger. They never reported it. They may have just not wanted to talk to me about it, but I wonder if he hid that side of himself from them. I simply don't know. And I can't ask my mom. She's been gone, almost 15 years. But I think about it. And I think if we are truly desiring to be a community that welcomes one another and people from outside, we have to become a place where we can engage with one another when things are a little tough, when there's some friction in the air. We've got our vision to be a diverse, dynamic, and spiritual community living its principles. Well, that's a great goal. How is another question. And it means that we, at least as I understand it, we listen to one another, even and especially when the going gets a little trickier. We're in a holding period now. We're waiting for the city to say yay or nay or exactly what on our building plans, our master plans for the building. And at least as I understand it, the province has mandated that the city planning department use a different process. And be quicker about it, so that when people get the materials to the planning department, they've turned it around within, I think it's 2 months, Bill, I don't know if I'm right. And the city planning department, I want to be as neutral and fair as I can be, probably isn't staffed to do that. And so what they've been doing, it seems, is to say, well, your application isn't complete, even when it is. Now, things like this happen. Everyone's always waiting for planning departments. So we're in a holding period. We're in a holding period. We've done the paperwork. We know it's complete. But waiting is hard. Waiting is hard, so let's just know that. This isn't a time, I wasn't planning to say this, but I'm going to go there. This isn't a time to spin theories and ideas. This is a time to listen and say what we know to be true and to hold one another in care. The truth is, we don't know how long we're going to need to wait, which is not at all what I was planning to talk about this morning. So it remains to be seen what we will learn, what we can learn over the months to come. Let's hold each other in care and a degree of tenderness. Let us also be clear with what we know to be true. No food fights, please. The other thing I want to say, which I was going to explore more, 2 things. For the last month, at the recommendation of Rabbi Liz Bolton of Or Hanashama, the Jewish Reconstructionist community that meets in our space, I've been taking an online class with another member here. We both found it independently, to help me better understand the situation in Gaza right now. And the class is offered by a retired history of the Middle East professor, Joel Benin. He was history professor at Stanford. And he let us know that this last Thursday, his niece had an op-ed piece published in the New York Times. I've got a number of copies back on the welcome table in case you want to see it. I had seen the article on Thursday morning, but the class on Thursday night, until the class, I didn't realize that the author was related to my teacher. She was one of those 1,200 taken hostage on October 7th. Her husband was killed. Her house and village were burned. Her name is Liat Atzili, and I will just read just the first paragraph. The more is there. In Israel, the Shoah, the Holocaust, has often been spoken of in recent years alongside Tekuma, meaning rebirth in Hebrew. After the survivor generation, that means the survivor generation, those who survived the Holocaust, chose to rebuild a nation rather than lose itself to grief and vengeance. Grief and vengeance are hard emotions, but they are easy to come to. They are easy to hold on to. They are easy sources of strength and energy. The harder course is to look beyond those feelings, which we as humans will have, and say, where can I and you go from here? I recommend it to you. Such a voice is especially rare in Israel right now. The world has always needed voices like that. The best we can do is to read to understand, and to echo the voices calling us forward in love and wholeness. Thank you. Thank you.
I invite the ushers to start passing the offering baskets now. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. To make a gift in support of the congregation's work, you don't need to use the baskets. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate the gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And now, please rise as you are willing and able to join together in singing our closing hymn in honor of Black History Month. Follow the Drinking Gourd, number 152 in our gray hymnal. The words will also be up on the screen.
Drink
that old spiritual, that teaching song on what to look for on the so-called Underground Railroad, where slaves sought freedom by coming here. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that coffee hour will begin in Fellowship Hall immediately after this service. And as Mariella mentioned earlier, our Collaborative Ideas Garage will begin shortly. Because of it, though, coffee hour is going to be a little shorter this week, because that meeting starts at 12:30. But please, don't rush. I promise there's enough coffee for us all. If you are new here, find my prop. If you still feel new or simply welcome a good conversation today, please pick up a green mug as you enter Fellowship Hall. Doing so will help others looking forward to a good conversation find you. And again, leafy greens, courtesy of the good folks of Ajaski, are still only a little bit larger tender roots. Don't worry, we'll be able to harvest a little later this winter. One final note, I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks. Some of you will know, many of you won't. My stepson, CJ, invited my wife Ann and I to join him. His best friend moved to Australia 5 years ago. He and his now wife have just had their first baby. Ann and I are going to be grandparents pretend for a little while. Looking forward to that. I will miss you. I will be back with you all the first Sunday in March. We extinguish our chalice this morning to these words which Liz James introduced us to 2 weeks ago. From Alex Capitan, "You can't fool me. Money is no replacement for love. A Manhattan is a no substitute for good conversation. I'm not a houseplant. I need more than sun and water. Lift your voices in harmony, sharing tears, banishing fears. Ask me again, how are you? Dance around the fire. You don't need feet for that. You don't need to work on your workflow. I promise you that is all nonsense. You are plenty efficient enough. You are a sacred vessel of light, of ideas. You are not your portfolio, your equity. Happiness is not coming as soon as you're done with this debt, this degree, this child, this house. Happiness is when you see somebody suddenly, as if you've never seen them before, when the waves of pleasure crash over you and you finally stop fighting them, when you get the coffee right, when the moon blocks the sun and you realize you live on a miraculous floating ball in space, when your child takes your hand to show you something they've drawn, when you ask for help and people say, yes, of course, you are a being of light exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't forget, okay? Our chalice is extinguished, but the spark of our connections and faith remain. Jen, singers, will you lead us again by blessing us with leading us in our closing song?
Rise in the
as now we return to the challenge of helping the world come alive in love, let us go forward with the drive for better days in our steps and love in our hearts. My friends, as we leave this space, go with peace. Go in peace.